Hello, horror fans! Welcome to episode 38 of Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. I am your host, James Ferguson. I should probably add to that, I am your humble and embarrassed host, James Ferguson, because I'm beginning to think I'm cursed. See, I had a great interview with Jacob Simon and Jorge Corona, the creative team behind Number One with a Bullet, set to debut next week from Image Comics. When I went to edit the file, I found that my audio was lost. So it was a weird two-thirds of a conversation, basically between them and weird pauses where I should have been talking. I'm obviously super bummed about this because, one, it makes me look ridiculous, but two, they were awesome guests, both of them, and I'm determined to get them back on the show again soon, perhaps when the trade paperback for the book is released. But, in the meantime, please check out the first issue of Number One with a Bullet this Wednesday, November 1st. It's a really creepy tale about how our use of social media can go horribly wrong. While you're at it, if you haven't already, please check out their previous book, Goners, which is one of my favorite books from recent years. Fortunately, I have some other interviews lined up, so I am just going to adjust the schedule a little. So, this week's guest is now Kevin Joseph, the writer of Tart, a supernatural time-traveling detective comic. Kevin is currently crowdfunding the release of Tart number 6, illustrated by Karl Moline. The Kickstarter campaign has already met its funding goal and is plowing through stretch goals. Kevin also has a new one-shot coming out soon from Source Point Press called Morte. It's a gripping tale of the last man on Earth, told almost entirely without dialogue. There's literally one word in it. It's a beautiful book, really awesome stuff. Kevin can be found online at ketchellcomics.com and on Twitter at BNOKJ. Be sure to sign up to his newsletter at ketchellcomics.com/freecomics, and you'll get 5 free books, including the first 3 issues of Tart. Ketchell is spelled K-E-C-H-A-L. In other news, if you're liking the show, it would mean the world to me if you took a few minutes to leave me a positive review on iTunes or Stitcher. That kind of stuff is supposed to really help podcasts by appeasing the Apple gods or something. Anyway, that's it for the housekeeping. Now, let's get to the podcast. Here is Funny Book Splatter, episode 38, with my guest, Kevin Joseph. So, to start, what I figured would probably be the best thing to do is, if you had to explain Tart, I think I've described it as Quantum Leap meets Buffy, but I don't think that's doing the book justice. How would you describe the book?
Well, I think that's perfectly does it justice. If we're at a convention and I have 8 seconds to get your attention, that's exactly what I use. I use Buffy meets Doctor Who with a little bit of Sandman rolled in. Mm-hmm. One of the people that stopped by in San Diego this year, she said, "Oh, it's a demonic quantum leap." And I went, "Yes, it is, and I'm going to steal that for the rest of my life."
Yeah, so I love the idea behind it. You have this kind of like time-traveling monster hunter who's just really just bouncing through time and kicking ass, but there's clearly like a larger story at work here about this organization that she works for and how she gets these assignments and stuff. It's and so much of it, I feel like there's so much potential for it to be revealed over time.
We definitely have a bigger story we want to tell, but it's certainly a lot of fun to get to know Tart Acid, our lead character, a little bit better before we expand it. Mm-hmm. So we're having fun getting to know who she is, and throwing out a couple clues and hints and like, I don't want to say false leads, but definitely some whodunits and what's going on clues in there about the bigger story.
Yeah. Now, what do you have like an end game for Tart? I know you have 5 issues completed. The 6th issue is the Kickstarter's coming. So is there is this like a 60-issue epic kind of thing, or you're building an arcs?
I certainly made the mistake of envisioning a 60-issue epic. When I started this out, I did not know how difficult it would be to get books out. So we have about a 40-ish issue, 40-ish or so issue story. It may come down a little bit as we try to get through it. There may be some issues that we're maybe not as important to telling the whole story. So we might be able to get it down to 25 to 30 issues. So we're just going to tell it from now on in kind of a series of mini-series. The first 3 issues are an arc. The next 4 issues are an arc. I envision about 4 issues after that going forward. Trying to get out more of an arc per year, which would at least 4 issues moving forward.
And are you still envisioning you doing a Kickstarter campaign for every issue? Is that correct?
Well, we're going to do a Kickstarter for issue 6 and issue 7 most likely to finish out this arc. And once we get 7 issues in the can and get hopefully either an artist on board that's going to be able to get 4 to 6 issues done every year, or possibly rotate a couple artists to get 4 to 8 issues done a year, we might put our book in front of a couple bigger publishers and see if we can't go back to being the writer and creators and not the publishers, so that we can get the book finished a little quicker for our readers.
Well, if you already have 6 issues in the can, that's yes. Certainly something that any publisher can be satisfied with, of not worrying about having to track you down to get all the last pages and stuff. Plus, you have a fan base that you've been building up between Kickstarter and your newsletter, so the hope is that you already have a built-in fan base there, a built-in system.
We definitely. I mean, we've got the people who support us, and including yourself. Thank you very much for.
I stand by the guests that come on, so I make sure it's like, yeah, if something's involved with a Kickstarter campaign, I've vetted it out and backed it myself before someone appears on the show.
Well, you and everybody that comes into the campaigns for us really make it happen. The biggest reason I don't want to keep going to Kickstarter for every issue is I kind of want to be able to reward our backers with just being able to go to their local comic shop at some point and pick it up for $4 and not have to pay shipping, which is, it's so rough. I'm putting the first tier together, and I don't want to charge anybody over $4 for a comic. A comic book, to me, I like to sell for $4. It's what I spend at the bookshop, and it's comfortable. I'll pay $5 for an indie if that's what they need. That's no problem. But it's very difficult to sell a single issue on Kickstarter for less than $10. Mm-hmm. With the shipping involved, it's $6.50 of the $10 is going to the postal service and the packing, which is it's part of the business, and I don't mind that they make more money than me. I mind that it cost $9 to $11 to get one comic from me on Kickstarter. So if we could get to in previews and Diamond in a local comic shop eventually, that would definitely be the goal.
Cool.
But then when we finished an arc, if we did a nice, beautiful hardcover, and we went to Kickstarter to give somebody something special they could keep forever, that's definitely a possibility too.
Yeah, I think that's also a great idea too, because then, like, while I love the book and I definitely still support it, but it's like, all right, if I've backed for the single issues, well, and then you go ahead and do the collection or a hardcover, it's like, well, I already have all the issues. But I like this, so I'm gonna throw down more money. So it's almost like, okay, you're double dipping to an extent, but that's kind of like the not exactly, but the you could release things like digitally, for example. I think that's how like Dirk Manning does it. So it's like, okay, here are all the issues digitally, and then he'll do a Kickstarter for the collection. So if you wanted, you couldn't wait, you can go ahead and check out all the single issues that way, but then you get this exclusive kind of Kickstarter experience then.
It's certainly a possibility moving forward if we didn't find ourselves a home after we finished issue 7 and we had 2 arcs ready, doing the individual issues digitally. It's interesting. I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I'm American. Ludo, the co-creator and the artist on the first 5 issues, is French. He wants trade paperback, large volumes. He doesn't care about the floppy comics. I grew up with floppy comics. That's what I want. And our fan base seems to be split between the two. So I don't want anyone to feel like they have to double dip, but I also don't want to shut anyone out of the way they like to consume it either. I love digital. It's great. It gets our book around the world. I'd rather you paid $2 in Australia and read it than decided not to read it because you have to pay $16 in shipping to get a $4 book. You know.
Yeah, and I love that.
So it's oh no, it's weird that it's very difficult to know what to do and how to do. But I certainly don't. I would never be upset if someone bought all 4 single issues and didn't buy the trade. Mm-hmm. That's definitely, there's no pressure that way.
Yeah, and I love this. You have this real easygoing approach to it, and not just like, well, no, I gotta do this. It sounds like you're really just happy if people are consuming the work, and it's like, yeah, they'll come back. I mean, that's what you did with San Diego with your last Kickstarter campaign. You literally, I bought books for you to give to other people. Like that was one of the intentions. Like, all right, I've already read Tart, but you wanted an issue number 1 that you could just hand out to people, and you gave out like over 100 copies, right? To folks.
Yeah, it was 130 in San Diego, and about another 45 in Miami and Fort Lauderdale SuperCon the next weekend, which was amazing. Now, here's the question. You know, when I go to a con and I buy books, sometimes they go in my bag, and I don't open my bag for 3 months. Mm-hmm. So the question will be, how many of those 170 people will read the book before say this next Kickstarter? And it's, you know what, it's a risk I'm willing to take, because if they read it now, I think there's a good chance they'll like it and want to read further. And if they read it in 6 months, they'll know where to find us. A reader in 6 months is better than not getting a reader at all.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful way to look at the comic book industry with that. There are issues facing this industry, and not all of them are going to be solved anytime soon. But in the end of the day, we all just want to read comics, and that's getting that job done.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is, I'm not smart enough to fix any of these problems. I'll leave that up to the people who actually, know business and marketing and know how to, strategize and all the different buzzwords that you want to talk about. And I have a story that I really enjoy telling. I have an artist who I adore who did the first 5 issues and had to step away for a second. And I've got another artist, Karl Moline, who created Frey with Joss Whedon, who I adore, doing issue 6. And I just want to keep telling cool stories with great artwork and meeting people.
Yeah, and you touched on Karl joining for issue 6. That was an incredible story. Like, what I love is, so you have a newsletter that I feel that. And I said something very similar to Ryan K. Lindsay when he was on the show, is that I feel like I'm along for the ride with your making comics journey. So when you have troubles or triumphs, it's like I'm right there with you. So when you told this like riveting story about how you approached an artist that you admired and kind of intimidated, but you're like, no, I gotta ask, and it ended up working out, and the guy drew issue 6. So yeah, the guy who co-created Frey, huge industry artist, is now working with you for issue number 6.
Well, first of all, before I go into that story, to be mentioned with Ryan K. Lindsay is the ultimate compliment that I don't think I deserve, but I appreciate, because he is, in my opinion, the best new voice on the comic scene over the last couple years. He is incredible.
I wholeheartedly agree. And what I also think is very interesting is when it comes to email newsletters, it's very clear who reads and follows his newsletters from the other newsletters that I get, because I can see him like there's even a couple of them that clearly like even have like post-credit scene. I'm like, you ripped that right from his newsletter. Like,
hey, you know what? If you're gonna steal from the best. So I'll steal from Ryan K. Lindsay any day of the week.
But ain't broke, don't fix it.
I steal from Tyler James all the time. I'll steal from Ryan. I'll steal from all these Kelly Thompson, Eric Palicki, all these people. I'll just steal. That's fine. But yeah, when I met, I'd met Karl about probably 3 years ago at one of these cons, and he's just a nice guy, like one of the nicer people behind the table. And so here it is 3 years later. I knew Ludo was taking a step back, and I needed to follow Ludo, which is not very easy with the artwork that he does.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the toughest things is I did not want to take a step back with the artwork, because I get way too much credit for this book. What I have is a stallion of an artist, and I kind of try to point him in a direction that makes him excited.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do with this book. And he had to step away, and so I'm talking to Karl, and I just asked him what was up next. I probably had, an ulterior motive in that question. And he said he had, a couple months in between things. He was trying to get on covers, and I just, bit the bullet, and I said, well, would you be interested in ever working with someone that you have never heard of? And his thing was just like, well, if it's the right project, I'm basically I'll never say no before I know what the offer is. And so I said, okay, let me please give you the first 5 issues. You can read them, tonight if you can, and if you like them, I have a script ready. So I think he read them over the next 2 nights, and he said, "Yeah, this is good. I really." He even complimented Ludo. He said, "I don't know why you would replace this artist," and I said, "I'm not replacing him. If he had the time to do it, he would do it. There's no. He's taken a step back for his own pocketbook." And he's like, "Oh, okay, all right." I said, "Well, I'll send you the script." And I remember I got the script out, and I went through it probably 4 times that night. I usually do a pass through before I send it to the artist, just because typos are always in there and you don't want to look dumb. But I realized I'm sending the script to a guy. I know he's worked with some other great writers. Don't get me wrong, but he wrote to one of my greatest inspirations as a writer. My 2 writing gods are Neil Gaiman and Joss Whedon. So when it was tough to hit send. Giving him the books that I know are good wasn't scary, but sending that script where it was literally just my words and he had to envision them, it was intimidating. But I had already taken 2 steps off the cliff, and I was like, I was Wile E. Coyote. I was looking down, so I figured I might as well hit send anyway. And he liked the script and said, "Yeah, I've got time, and let's do it." So it's been a pleasure working with him. He's a nicer guy than he is an artist, and he is an incredible artist.
That's awesome. And I love that, because look, it can't hurt to ask. Like, now, yeah, like, you're not gonna walk up to like Greg Capullo right now and go, "Hey, you want to draw my book?" But it can't hurt to at least talk about it. So it's something that you didn't just throw it out there. Like, "Hi, I'm Kevin, and here's my script." You talked about it. You've met him before, you said, so you built up some rapport, and then you kind of just threw it out there on a whim, and it all really worked out. So that's awesome.
Well, it did. I mean, I can't say that I met him before in a way that he remembered who I was when I re-met him, but I did. I do have some of his artwork on my wall, so I was able to say I bought this print, which probably endeared me.
Was that pre or post Tart? So now do you have more artwork as a result?
This would have been, I believe, my first con selling Tart. I don't believe I gave him a copy back then. I kind of didn't. I still don't understand networking really, but I definitely didn't understand it then.
It's just.
I showed it to artists. I showed it to Oliver Coipel, which was kind of cool because Oliver is French and Ludo's French, so I definitely used that. And he was nice. He looked at it and complimented the artwork. But they're busy. They're doing things. Yeah. He's doing probably a $2,000 commission, knowing him. So you don't stay there too long. Like as you said, I didn't ask Oliver Coipel what he was doing.
Yeah, nothing against Karl, obviously, but it's one of those things that you could just start if you build up at least a conversation with the guy, you can at least start throwing stuff like that out there.
Carl should be working on Marvel books and DC books, and I'm certain that when he decides to really jump in and get back in the game, he will. But he's real happy he's doing some covers right now, and I think that's where his passion lies right now. But I will drop a little. I haven't told anybody this. We were talking about it. If we can figure out a couple backups going forward, he might do like 4-page backups every couple of issues.
That'd be awesome.
Just because, he likes the world, and it'd be a nice way to kind of get into some of the other characters in a not as plot heavy. Maybe we could throw a couple Easter eggs in there, a little character building with some of the other people, and maybe some clues as to what we're doing. So I haven't hashed out what I'm going to do, but when he said, when Carl says I'd be willing to do something, I'm certainly going to figure out how to make that easy for him.
Definitely. So you mentioned that. So Ludo was your original artist, and now what is his involvement now moving forward with the series?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot divulge exactly what he'll be doing moving forward because that will be a Kickstarter only reveal.
Okay.
So once this campaign gets going in 2 or 3 days time, I'll be able to tell some people exactly what he'll be doing with us. He will be a little more involved than he has been on issue 6, but that's all I can tell now because I have to save a little bit for.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think
for the campaign.
You mentioned Tyler James. I think I've mentioned on the show as well. Like I will back any Kickstarter campaign he's involved in because it turns into an event, and it sounds like you're part of that group as well in terms of like let's treat it as a campaign. This is you have to work at it and have things to keep people coming back. So.
You want to make it fun for the people. See, what I hope to do is, and my supporters have been like a godsend so far, and knock on wood, people really jump in on the first day and get the ball rolling for us, and that is amazing because it takes a lot of the stress out when that happens. So if you know anybody kickstarting and you want the book, this is to everybody listening. If you can get there that first day, I can't tell you. Your $5 is the same at the beginning of the campaign or the end. So God bless you whenever you back. But if you do it that first day and you can get that monkey off of creator's back, then it's just fun. But then what I need to do is make that month worth your time as a backer too. So, and it's the dance of you don't want to do too many updates because I actually backed one where a guy updated like 3 times a day, and I
might have backed the same campaign because it got too much. I had a similar experience, and I actually canceled my pledge because it was like too many updates.
I think if you did the right thing because I still haven't gotten those books. So if you did, you made the right choice. But that's the risk too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate with my. I have had, I think, 2 books that just they tried, and this poor guy's just like fell on hard times, and it just didn't come together. And the one I remember had a guy going like he offered to refund everybody. So he's like, send me your PayPal, I'll send it back to you. And I kicked him out. I was like, dude, just don't worry about it. It was like $5 or $10. Like just take that and I'm sure you're losing money in this whole thing anyway. Don't worry about it.
You know what? I really respect him for at least making that offer.
Yeah.
I do respect that. If anything happened like that with me, that's what I'd do. But I guess you can't ask. I mean, you should be able to ask for that. You shouldn't have to ask, to be honest, because when I make this campaign, like we always have 80 to 99% of the artwork done on our books before we kickstart because I don't want to be in that place. I mean, Carl was just injured recently, so he was going to be very involved with this campaign. But when he had his injury, I was like, okay, so like you've got like 4 more pages to color and the cover. So instead of you working with me on this minutia on the campaign, just do that. I got this. Don't worry about it. because I wanted to teach him Kickstarter, because I'm sure he's got an art book that he could do that would, blow this place apart.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
But instead, I'm going to have him prioritize just getting the artwork done, because I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. I can understand, and I respect that a lot, because I see, like, if I get to a campaign and there's a Kickstarter page and there's no artwork, it's like, how do I know you're gonna finish this book? Like, if I give you any money, but if you already have, if it's done, awesome, and if you have 50 to 80% done, that's also great, because I know, like, all right, you've committed, you've put money down, you had skin in the game there to go, okay, like, this is, I've already started this project, I just need a couple bucks to finish it, or even just to get it printed. That, I think, it shows how responsible you are with the product already, like, you did all this work ahead of time.
We started it that way, and it just kind of feels like the right way for us. There are professionals who can do it the opposite way. I think Jimmy Palmiotti probably has his art team ready. Mm-hmm. He has his cover done. He has the script done, and he probably has, thumbnails ready, so he knows he can say yes to the art. And boom, when he gets the funding, he pays the guy and he gets his book out. And he can do that because he's been doing it for, 20 years and solidly for 4 years on Kickstarter. Me, I can't make that guarantee, so I at least have to have the line art done. When Karl finished the line art for this, I said, okay, no matter what happens, I can get this colored. Mm-hmm. I want Karl to color every page, and he wants to, and that is the goal, and that is, I think that's definitely going to happen. If he doesn't, guess what? It's going to get colored, because we're going to get it done, and no one's going to wait. Mm-hmm. But definitely, I don't have the experience to say, hey, give me all this money, I've got a script, I'll make this book. But I do have the experience to say, I have all this artwork done, I'm going to work with my printers, and we're going to make something kind of fantastic.
Yeah, and look, you've delivered. So I mean, like, having that as a track record is certainly a great thing.
And yeah, we've done 5 now, and this one got a little tight with the San Diego Comic-Con, but we got everything out. August was our promise, and everything went out August, so I was very excited. Now we've got some Australian backers. I'm looking up my computer. It's 8:31. I can't promise that our international backers have their books, but it went out in August. That I promise.
There you go. Well, yeah. That's a time difference anyway. It's like time traveling, getting it out there.
Yeah, it was that extra 12 hours that did me in. If it wasn't for that, it would have made it perfect.
Now, this year was your first experience with San Diego Comic-Con. What was that like? That's like the big show. That's like the Super Bowl of comic book conventions. It
was insane. It was cool because we were probably 50 yards from DC's big section, and another 50 yards past that for Marvel. So when the Justice League, they started playing the trailer, so you couldn't hear anything because they were doing that big Justice League trailer, and then you heard them saying these people's names, and everybody started cheering, and I was like, oh, like whatever. And it's like, you're 60 yards from Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck and everybody. I was like, I didn't think they'd be here. I thought they'd be down in Hall H. Really? It was crazy. And then we're a big Marvel Cinematic Universe family, so we when Chris Hemsworth was there, I walked as close as I could get to get a video of the screen of Chris Hemsworth signing people's stuff. But you know what? That's what I sent home to the wife and kids, so that was worth it. It was neat. It was big. It was fun. It was as exhausting a 5 days as you could possibly have, but it was great. I'm glad I went. Whether or not I go back again, really, it's not easy on the pocketbook to go out there. So it'll let's see how this Kickstarter does if I go back next year. But even if I don't, I've been there, and that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Like, would you go back again?
Yes, but it was, when you're having to do flights, you're having to do a hotel, and you're having to do we split the booth with my buddies down here, Creature Entertainment. They had a good year, but not good enough to go and do the whole booth themselves. So they gave me a call and said, "Would you like to go?" Because they know that I'm just dumb enough to try. And I looked at it, and I just couldn't say no to trying. I paid more for half of a booth than I've ever paid at any show I've ever done. And we met. We had talked online, but we met at New York Comic Con. So it's not like I only do cheap shows. I do some shows that are kind of pricey, but a full booth in New York is less than half a booth in San Diego.
Wow.
And that's, it's pretty tough selling $4 comic books to make that type of money back.
That's a lot of $4 comic books. Jeez.
It is, but because of the Kickstarter, we had 175 issues that were technically already purchased. It's not. I told people when I gave it to them, this is not a free comic book. This is a comic book that someone else bought you, because I wanted to put that value on the book that I was paid $4 for that book. And I really wanted people to understand that someone outside of me believed in the project enough to purchase these books to give away. And it was, we'll see how well that resonated. But I did want to impress that it's like, this isn't free. It was purchased for you, and that was also pretty fun too, because you guys gave me 4 different groups of people to search for and a number to give to. So I was supposed to find like 80 women either wearing T-shirts or cosplay of kick-ass warrior women like Wonder Woman or Xena or it could even be Rogue or Captain Marvel. And then anybody wearing like Buffy or Whedonverse stuff, I was supposed to find like 25 people. And I was supposed to find at least 20 people with Doctor Who regalia. And what was the last one? It was anybody wearing Sandman, which is tougher because there's a huge amount of Neil Gaiman fans, but they don't dress up as often, in his stuff. So, but I do have 2 lovely photos of 2 separate deaths holding my book, which is always a huge for me to have anything with Neil Gaiman near my books.
Now, what was the reaction when you told people that someone else bought this book for you? It's like a pay it forward kind of thing.
I think people liked it. I don't want to oversell it, but they were just like, oh, that's cool. Which is, I think, does mean more than just here's a free comic book, you put it in the bag. I do think it made them give it a second glance. Now, does that second glance mean they'll read it? That's the mystery that even I still don't know. We'll see how it goes. It'll be kind of neat if over the next year, and if we're able to go back to San Diego, that would be the real kicker, to see if people come back to the booth and say, I was given this last year, I want to buy the books that you have. That'll be interesting, but it's a long time from here to there, and I've got to
well, hopefully they signed up for the newsletter or will pop up on the Kickstarter and can catch up there, because I'm sure you'll have some past copies available as rewards there, correct?
Yeah, we always do a catch-up tier, which is my favorite part of the Kickstarters. I get to reward 2 different sets of people. I get to reward the people who've been there always with really cool stuff that we haven't seen. You guys have been waiting, unfortunately, for a while for issue 6, so I get to come back and not to spoil anything, but let's just say issue 5 ended on quite a cliffhanger I did not know she'd be hanging on a year and a half later. So I'm very happy to be able to get her off that cliff for you guys. But for somebody new, we've got the trade paperback with issues 1, 2, and 3, issues 4 and 5 and 6, and we're going to be able to get that for $25, including shipping.
That's great.
So they can get caught up right away. This past Kickstarter with issue 1, we had 51 people pledge the catch-up tier. So 51 new people who knew nothing about us got all of the books, and that's when I was going through the tier, I was just like, yes, 51 new readers. That's incredible. That means so much to an independent book like ours. Marvel, if they don't have 12,000 to 30,000, they're firing everybody.
Yeah.
With me, I get 51, and I'm just like, yes, we are kicking ass.
Well, yeah. When you're starting in the indie scene, like that's every new reader is a huge potential there, and then it's
Absolutely.
like, and then you get that old commercial, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and yeah, you want to be able to be able to have people spread the word like that about a book. So I think
indie books survive by guerrilla marketing. If it isn't word of mouth, we all die.
Now, speaking of indie books, and I want to shift gears because you have another book coming up, Morte, which is a one-shot that's now coming out scheduled to come out through Source Point Press. When is that scheduled to debut?
We just got the go-ahead that we can actually talk about it, so I'm talking about it with you first.
You heard it
Source
here.
Point Press. Yes, you heard it here first. SourcePoint Press took us on, which I was very thankful for, because I joke I want to be Stan Lee the writer, not Stan Lee the publisher. So I'm always happy to have people who know more than me get the book out. I just want to sit and do crazy make-em-ups and let somebody else worry about the business side. And so they were incredibly nice to take us on. David Bishop is the artist on that. He's incredible. He does this book called Of Stone, which is kind of like a mountain troll king. And what amazed me is it was very quiet, and it's this troll, so he's almost like a brainiac-looking Hulk figure, and somehow he can make that ugly thing look beautiful. And I had this story that is literally a day in the life of the last man on Earth, and it's one of those where, unfortunately for him, everybody who died around him is still there. So he's walking amongst corpse after corpse after corpse, and I needed an artist who could make the grotesque beautiful. And I emailed David, and I just asked him, if he'd be a part, and we had never worked together before, just sort of, acquaintance / friends on Twitter. And 3 days later, he emailed me back, and he said, I've been thinking about it for 3 days straight. And that was all he wrote. Mm-hmm. And I wrote, is that good? And he goes, oh, no, it's good. I have to draw it. I'm like, okay, cool. So let's do it. So this November, it will be available from SourcePoint Press. It should be able to have some pre-ordering starting in September. That'll be something that will, of course, be out on the mailing list and Kickstarter updates.
Yeah. Well, will that be another Kickstarter campaign from them, or do you think that'll be just a regular Diamond solicit?
I think it's just going to be picked up on their website and at conventions.
Oh, okay.
We're not doing a Kickstarter at this point. They had a spot in their printing schedule for a book much earlier than we could have done a Kickstarter to print it. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to hold the book up for a Kickstarter. I want, this is a book I want people to read it. I want to get it out. It's a very unique book that is not for everyone, but I believe it will leave its mark on everyone.
That's a really great way to describe it. And you had shared it with me earlier, and it's a powerful book, and it's not something you see from. I mean, I don't want to call it like a zombie thing, because it's not really a zombie story, but it's that it is that kind of that like I Am Legend kind of. What does the last man on Earth do? And this guy takes up a very interesting cause, and it's really powerful and moving to see. It's something that there's not a lot of dialogue. There's almost no dialogue in the narration at all. I don't think
it was written without any dialogue or narration. It was written completely silent. I started it. Gosh, I think I started it on the way home from the first New York Comic Con that we met.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, I was my artist Chris and Ludo were taking different flight. Ludo, of course, was taking a different flight because he was going to France. But my artist Chris, who lives in Fort Lauderdale, his girlfriend had flown up for the last day of the show, and they were staying in New York for like 2 days. So they were flying home. So, you're in this just deep pit of exhaustion, not despair, but just exhaustion. And I was reading I think it was Mental Floss, actually. It was either New Scientist or Mental Floss, but I think it was Mental Floss. And just something clicked in me that I wanted to tell the story of this last guy on Earth. And I didn't really exactly know that it was this story, probably until about 3 pages in. And then I got about 6 pages in, and I got 14 pages in, and he hadn't spoken yet. And there was no need for narration. And I just went, oh, I think I can do this. And then it became a challenge. Can I finish this book without narration? It wasn't the goal when I started writing it, but it was definitely halfway through became the goal. And the script that I sent to David did not have it. David did point out, and you know what? It's one of those situations where you have to listen to your co-creators. He said, I really think he should say something right here. And he technically wrote the one bit of dialogue in the book David actually wrote. So we're laughing about, doing this, script by Kevin Joseph, art by David Bishop, dialogue by David Bishop. But I think that little bit of dialogue works where it works, and the reason David wanted it is the right reason. So you got to listen to your co-creators, because they're going to make it better 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, it's a collaborative medium, so it's not just here's the script. No, take care of this art monkey. It's very much
no.
you got to work together, because the book will only get better by doing that.
I think of there's only been 2 times where a change has been made that didn't help the story, and both times were a mistranslation by Ludo. Because he's not, English is not his first language, and he mistranslated. Now the first time it was, I believe in issue 1. So he just drew it. Well, issue 2, for the people who don't know about us, is fully painted. So I got this page, and a little boy in the script is supposed to be running away from Tart in fear. Well, Ludo mistranslated and has the kid attack her. So I went, oh, well, I'm not going to ask you to repaint it. Let's work with this dialogue. So we worked with the narration, and the kid became much more pugilistic in the telling after that. After his first reaction to her was to attack. So, but that was it was fun to work with that too. It wasn't a plot problem, so it was certainly worth working around.
And going back to Morte, I think the idea of being able to tell a story like that, and let the art speak, is I'm sure very challenging, but I think if you can do that, it can be just as, if not more, effective than anything else. I think a lot of comics now can be overwritten, especially in the indie space. I see too many that it's like they're explaining every little detail, or they're explaining the wrong things. And to see a story that can be told that way is, 1, refreshing, but 2, that, oh, okay, it almost it forces you to pay attention more to each thing, and see each of the different panels, and the facial expressions of the characters, and you're filling in some of the blanks there as to what's going on. And then I think I remember, I didn't notice that it had no real dialogue until I was halfway through, and I think it's almost the same way you said when you're writing it. I didn't even notice that it didn't have any, and then I'm like, oh, that's what this is going for, and this works really well in this situation, because in the scheme of things, who does he have to talk to?
Yeah, and it didn't feel right to have thought balloons. Well, it's definitely we write this not so much as a mystery, but definitely as a what is going on. That's part of the reader's job to figure out what's going on. So thought balloons and narration would have gotten in the way of that experience for the reader, and he has no one to talk to. So unless he, painted a volleyball and called him Wilson, who's he going to talk to? And I believe that's been done.
Yeah, well, that would have taken you right out of the story. If he's just sitting there every so often gesturing to a volleyball, and it's like, well, this is an odd turn. Like,
yeah, it would have gotten us a lot of viral marketing though when we were sued by Tom Hanks. So maybe I should have done it. I don't know.
Yeah, no publicity is no bad publicity is good. No, yeah, I butchered that. Bad any publicity is good publicity.
Yes.
There we go.
There you go.
Third time's a charm. There, we're getting that saying out.
Yeah, I mean, and they, you can't get blood from a stone, so they can sue me all they want.
Yeah, the guys at Source Point Press have a really great horror stable there. It seems like I feel like every time I think I'm catching up with some of their stuff, it's like, oh no, here's more. Like they have a really deep bench with some of the stuff that they've been making lately. So I have a lot to catch up with. I have to get some of those guys on the show too. Yeah,
no, they're great guys. I've met them quickly at a couple shows. I did the Greater Philadelphia Comic Con about a year and a half ago, and they were up there, and I'm Twitter friends with Travis McIntyre, and who's kind of like their grand poobah, or one of the two, Josh Werner and him, and then Sean Seal is one of their artists, and he's a real nice guy, and Katie Pierce does work with them. They just seem to be a good group of people. They're in it to make good books and have fun, and I like that mindset. They're not out to. We'd all love to make money, but if you're in indie comics to make money, you really need to go just get a second job.
you're not doing it right then.
Yeah. You should be in indie comics to get some stories out to people. If you want to try to do a Bendis and build up a name and go right for Marvel and DC, God bless you. But just to fill up your bank account, there are better ways to do that. Yeah, prospect for gold maybe, but
and panhandling on the streets in some cases. Unfortunately, this is like it's a labor of love in this industry. They can't all be Bendis and Robert Kirkman.
Yeah, no. Some would say going to convention is a form of panhandling, but I at least give you a book for my begging.
Yeah, so at least in that case, yeah, it's more of a trade, and in the case of what you did at San Diego, it's a reverse panhandling. So it's a very interesting experience.
Yes, my computer friends helped me panhandle to hopefully new friends.
Now, one of the things I have to ask you is about your username, your Twitter handle. Most folks have their name or the real name. Well, I don't even know how to pronounce. Is it Bean OKJ? Like how do we pronounce that? Where does that come from?
It is Bean OKJ. It comes from like most things, me being an idiot who knew nothing. Like literally, I know nothing about Twitter when I signed up, but I got onto the whole computer thing a little later than I should have. I just missed the internet in college. So I graduated just as, what was it? Was it Netscape? The thing with the anchor was the first. All right. So when I was graduating, everyone's like, you need to go on the internet. And I went, okay. And I went to the computer and there was Netscape and I clicked on it. And I had no clue what to do. Like I knew no websites to even put an address in, and I certainly didn't know how to find anything. So I sat there for about 15 minutes, and I went, I don't like the internet, and I left. Because I was just like, I don't get it. So if I had stayed another year, that's when it wasn't. It was probably Yahoo was starting, and you could type in something and it would find it for you. Pro football, and it would find you the NFL site. But so I might have gotten into it. So everything I started, it was late. So with a name like Kevin Joseph, you can never get Kevin Joseph because there are people with that as a first and last name, but there are 100 people with that as the first and middle name. And Kevin Joseph 14, 18, 19, 32X was taken. You know, it was like, and to go even further into the stupidity, a lot of my friends call me KJ, so I always try to get KJ, and that's even harder than Kevin Joseph. Another friend called me Bino because I don't want to say irrationally, but I had a strong hatred of Bino Cook, the old college football commentator, because he was just such an asshole. And I guess you shouldn't talk bad about the dead, so I'm just going to stop talking about him, because my hatred hasn't gone away, even though he's gone away. But you know, I'm sure at some point he was entertaining. It's just not in the 40 years of my lifetime. So, of course, your friends start calling you what you hate. So Bino became my nickname. So when I started getting computer things, I found out that the best way for me to get a handle that I would always remember is just BNOKJ. It's now that I say this, somebody will, as a prank, start taking that. But I have never, in any instance ever, put that in and it not been available, unless it's a website I was already on 3 years ago and I can't remember my passcode to. Yeah. And so it's ludicrous. It's dumb. If I could figure out how to change my Twitter handle to Kevin Joseph Ryder, I would. But I think all you poor people are stuck with my idiocy.
Well, I think you're right in that no one's ever going to grab that grouping of letters together. I was lucky. I got James Ferguson on Twitter. Like I must have been one of the first, because since then, like, there's been a ton of, like, I've searched James Ferguson on Facebook, and it's like there's thousands of them. So it's not quite as popular as, like, John Smith or perhaps Kevin Joseph, but there's a bunch. There's a rapper that tags me on Twitter by accident sometimes when he uploads new videos, and I'm like, nice. Oh, okay, like, there's a James Ferguson rapper. All right, good for you, man.
I have to be very careful. Our letterer is David Hopkins, and he goes professionally by DC Hopkins, because there is somebody in comics named David Hopkins. Oh, wow. And I have tagged the not DC Hopkins David Hopkins probably 10 times, and he's super nice about it every time. He's always like, yes, this is not me. So I always give him a British accent, because he's very, very polite about his stop tagging me tweets. So I have to do that. But DC Hopkins is our letterer, and he makes every one of our books better except for Morte. It was so funny. I started talking about that I was working on this book, and he sent me an email, and it's, David does every book we do, because he does a tremendous job. He's quick, he's professional, and he makes everything better, because he's a true artist with his lettering. So if I have a job and he has the time, he does it. And he sent me an email. And he said, I don't want to be presumptive, but if you want a letterer for Morte, I'd really like to do it. And I said, yeah, there's really not a lot of work on this one.
Funny story.
I think I'm gonna let Dave Bishop take care of this one. And when you read the book, I think you're gonna understand why.
Hopefully he didn't take it personally at first and be like, "Oh, no, man, really? What a jerk! Why did you do that?"
So, there's one bit of dialogue in the entire book. I don't think we're gonna, need your services on this one. And so that was a funny conversation, because he was probably like, I hope I'm not, getting left. Whereas he's, the problem's gonna be he's so good, he's gonna work out of my price range pretty soon, because he's starting to get, that Darkwing Duck he lettered, oh, wow. And he's starting to do some of the higher level indie books. So, which is, God bless him. I love him. I hope that I can't afford him anymore, because he's a great dude, and I just want him to prosper. Maybe he'll throw me a bone and still let me pay it. But.
Yeah, well, that's one of the troubles with indie comics, is that you're working with a bunch of fellow creators that are all working in the industry and trying to rise up in the industry. That if one of them makes it big, then it's like, oh well, all right, I guess we can't finish this project, because good for you, but like, all right, I got to figure out how I'm going to fix this now.
Well, I don't know if you know Clay Adams. He does he did that book, The Pregnant Bitches of War.
Yeah, the Fried Comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So he tells a story. One of his books, and it might have been the PBOW, but I'm not sure. He had an artist. I think an artist broke an arm, so he lost that artist, and he found another artist who was great, and he gets ready to go. They've got everything set. He's going to start working. He gets an email. He's like, "Yeah, I can't. I don't know if I'm going to have time. I got this work doing concept art for this new show. It's going to be called Archer." so he lost. Those of us in indie comics know we can't quite deal with a not a network TV show paycheck, but at least a cable TV paycheck. We're never going to touch that. So yeah, go have fun on Archer. And I'm sure Clay was like, "I'm happy for you. I hope it's one season." And of course, Archer's probably going on its 10th season.
Yeah, that show's not slowing down anytime soon.
No, that's one of my some days. I know I'll love it. I've just never had time to start it.
Yeah, there's a plethora of great content out there when it comes to television in particular, but look, comics as well. I guess I shudder every time I update my backlog of comics that I've received over the years for reviews, because it's in the thousands now, and it's like, well, some of these I'm just never going to read. So I feel bad if like a publisher sent me a book, but I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I never read Abe Sapien number 30. I just never got that far into it. I intend to catch up sooner or later, but I probably have to start all the way from the beginning and restart that series because I don't remember anything.
Yeah, that must be very difficult to do. Like I can't keep up with the books that I actually buy, so I can only imagine if 5, 10, 15, 20 people a month or a week are sending things. I don't know how you pick and choose. Like, thank you for checking my stuff out. Like, thank you. That's really nice of you.
And look, this goes out to anybody as well. Like, if someone personally sends me their book that they made, I will make the time to review it. I will say, as full disclosure, it won't be right away. But if you give me a date as to like, oh, the book is going to come out on this day, or we're having a Kickstarter campaign that's going to launch there, then it helps me juggle it in terms of like the Wednesday releases every week. But yeah, if you're like, here's a book that came out 2 years ago, I'm like, all right, this is on the bottom of the pile. Like, I'm sorry, there's no priority for me to get to this unless you're like a buddy. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what I can do to bubble this up, but it takes a while for that to kind of get moved up if there's not like a specific kind of deadline for something like that. And I'm just being honest. Like, unfortunately, that's just how I have to juggle it a little bit.
I think I can speak for most indie creators, if not all. Any one review anybody gives us is a godsend. I've been appreciative of the reviews that we got that weren't as glowing as I had hoped, because someone took their time. No one owes you a thing. No one owes you their time. No one owes you their money. Whether they've purchased your book before or not, it's just every single time someone gives you their time or money or both, it's just so appreciated. And I think that most indie writers and artists really get that. I think it's a very receptive community to that, because you don't have to stop at my booth at a convention and look at my books. I appreciate you even if you don't buy. I appreciate you more if you buy, but I appreciate you stopping, talking to me, looking at the book, and if it's not your cup of tea, I totally respect that, because I don't buy every book that I walk past, and I can't expect everyone else to as well. I can hope, but I can't expect.
Well, look, some of the best people I've met in this industry have come up from the indie world, and now it's like seeing some of them break is also very exciting too. So I mean, we mentioned Ryan K. Lindsay. Like I've talked to him since Dear Editor 1 came out.
Nice.
Like I've talked to Fabian Rangel Rangel Jr. Excuse me.
I am so upset. He was 15 feet away from me in San Diego, and I didn't know it.
He is such a nice guy. Like, such a great dude. I've talked to him since Doc Unknown Volume 2.
Yeah.
Like, awesome dude.
Always seemed to be, like, just on Twitter, always seemed to be. I don't, I've got the Doc Unknowns, and I picked up, full disclosure, I've been too busy. I haven't read it, but I picked up Nam Wolf, and I was excited about it. On Sunday, I walk 15 feet around, Eric Powell's booth is right there. And I knew Eric Powell's booth was there because I know the Goon.
Yeah.
And, you know, he does some great stuff. And I had met him once long time ago, and he had been, like, super cool and given me, like, really good advice. So I went and I thanked him, and I looked down and I saw Fabian's name, and I was like, oh. And I looked on Twitter, and Fabian said, "I was so great to be at San Diego. Now I'm at he had driven like 12 hours to be at another show on Sunday."
Yeah, that was like a local con, I think, for him.
I was 15 feet away from him, and I would have been at least able to say, "Hey, you know, like, you don't know me, but I'm that guy with that stupid Twitter handle, BeNoKJ." "Oh yeah, you're the idiot with that one," you know. And I just missed him, 15 feet away, and I missed him. So.
Well, look, there's always other cons, and it sounds like he'll be doing more and more too. So I'm sure you'll cross paths sooner or later.
It sounds good.
This is usually the part of the show where I ask, well, how can people find you online? But I think we covered where people could find you based on Twitter with BeNoKJ.
They can also always, if you want to join that mailing list and read all of my comics, you can go to www.kechalcomics.com/read Tart. And I'll immediately send you the first 3 issues of Tart. And if you stay on the list, you'll get 4 and 5, and you'll get to read them for free. Not because I'm a nice guy, but because with this Kickstarter coming up, I hope you like it and maybe want to get a physical copy.
Yeah, and that'll definitely be linked in the show notes. Like I've read all of those as well. I've reviewed a number of them. Like it's definitely worth checking out. That's why I asked you to be on the show in the first place. Like I want to talk to people whose books I love. So definitely looking forward to issue 6 and where the series goes from there. And of course, Kickstarter campaign will be linked in the show notes as well. To definitely be checking. I will be backing it, so I definitely urge you guys to do that as well. So that is it then for this episode of Funny Book Splatter. I've been James Ferguson with my guest Kevin Joseph.
You've been listening to Funny Book Splatter, a horror comics podcast brought to you by HorrorTalk.com. We've been bringing you the best in horror since 2002. In addition to comics, we cover movies, TV shows, books, and video games. We've got news, reviews, guest features, interviews, unboxing videos, and much more. Be sure to sign up to Steve's Deals newsletter to increase your horror collection without breaking the bank. Check us out at HorrorTalk.com and at HorrorTalk on Twitter.